tell us about yourself. We're so excited to chat with you.
Yeah. That's a hard question, right? Where do I
It
start?
is.
Because I
Whatever
feel
you want
like,
us, tell us whatever you want us to know. How's that?
okay. I don't know what I want you to know.
Okay, then you know what? How about if I ask you a specific question? Because
Okay.
I just read some of the responses that you gave to some earlier questions. Air
Yeah.
Force.
Yep.
Is it 13 deployments?
Yep.
Okay, and 5 PCSs, right?
That's correct.
And where are you right now?
Right now we're in Spokane, Washington
Okay.
at Fairchild Air
Okay.
Force Base.
So we'll jump in it then. 13 deployments. You have to have some good stories or good family traditions while he's deployed.
No, the way that I cope with it is simply by focusing on the current day and the current deployment. And I try not to think about all of the other deployments that we've had or how many might be coming.
Or how many days are left. That's the
right.
worst thing
That's
you
right.
can do.
Yeah, I actually wrote an article a few years ago about counting the days. I used to have a calendar where I had a big red permanent marker and I would X off all the days that he was gone. Yeah. And about the 5-year mark, I had to stop because it was just depressing. You look at these calendars and it's just all red X's. And
it is.
Once I started like not counting and not keeping track and just dealing with what do I have to do today to get to tomorrow, then life became a little easier. And I didn't even realize that we had that many deployments until I had to add them up for somebody had asked me that question. And I thought, well, I don't know because I stopped keeping track.
That's interesting.
When we went through and looked, we're like, oh my gosh. And that's when we realized too, the number of deployments and then also just the number of days that he's been gone. It's
a lot.
Yeah. It was just part of our life that we accepted and dealt with, and we never really kept track.
I never ever thought I would feel this way. I don't know the right word. It's almost empowering at the end of the deployment. Like, yes, I stinking did it again.
That's right.
Right?
I survived. That's right. And I always try and do something that I'm proud of during that, during each deployment. Sure. And sometimes it is literally just surviving.
Right.
And being in one piece, when he returns home.
Right. I know.
I've always
deployment. I laid brick flooring in his office, so I had something to show for my nervousness, if you will, or my anxiety. Yep.
Yes.
I think we work on the same page then.
Yeah.
So, is the military what you expected it to be?
No. I didn't know anything about the military before I joined. I thought I wanted to be in the military actually.
Yeah.
And aspired to be a pilot and go to the Air Force Academy and all of those things, which I knew nothing about, but I knew it was something that was challenging and seemed interesting. And I actually did my ground school, and my particular instructor made it very apparent that he didn't believe women should be pilots. And so it gave me a real bad taste in my mouth, and I continued anyways. But then I attended an ROTC event, and that was my very first experience with, anything to do with the military, and they tell everyone to stand up, and everyone's called to attention. And I've never been so uncomfortable before. And that's when I decided this is not for me. I don't know anything about this. And so it's kind of funny to me that I have ended up as a spouse, that I married somebody.
That is fun. That is funny. Do you have any silly stories as a newlywed, little faux pas that happened, how you learned military lifestyle so quickly in a humorous way?
I've made lots of mistakes. No, nothing that comes to mind.
No,
right?
You can't think of anything funny?
No, I just always felt like an outsider because I didn't know anything. And the first 6 months or so, we weren't married. And so I didn't have access to the base. Okay. And so I didn't have an ID, and I couldn't do anything. I wasn't invited to things or anything.
That's an awful feeling.
It was, because here I was in this place, but not necessarily completely welcomed yet. And then as soon as we went, we had a courthouse wedding so I could have my ID. We told our parents, but that was it, nobody else. And once I had the ID in hand, then all of a sudden I could start accessing resources, things like that. Became real.
Now, are you in a position right now to spend time with your fellow spouses?
As far as like,
Socially.
here,
Yeah,
socially,
socially.
um,
How have you gotten to know some of the other wives or husbands?
right. So every duty station has been very different for us.
Absolutely.
We've never lived on base until this duty station. And so this particular duty station has been completely different in that our neighbors are military. You know, you go to the grocery store, military, whereas before we would have to travel to be in the military community. We always lived in the civilian community. So it's been different in the sense of people are always around. But I thought that by living in the community, there would be more socializing. But what I've encountered, the reality is that no, we're just seeing everybody's struggles on a daily basis. And by struggles, I mean everyone's deployed or they're gone or they, you know, like are having babies or whatever. Like everyone has their issue that they're dealing with at the moment, right? They're living life. And so although it would be nice to go out and socialize, a lot of our interactions are helping each other.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, your spouse is deployed right now. You need medicine for your kid. We're going to go do that. Or you need a meal, or okay, you guys are cool. You're going on vacation. Have a good time. We'll see you next month.
It's almost like we learned to become mind readers, if you will, because we've been in their shoes and we know that feeling.
Right. And I'm first to acknowledge I'm not a mind reader. My thing has always been you have to ask because I don't know. And because we're dealing with our whatever is going on right now. And I'm not always recognizing what other people are going through because we're all on different cycles.
Sure,
I know some branches of the military, like entire squadrons deployed together. Well, in the section that we're in, they don't. Everyone is like cycling. So everybody is at a different stage of deployment and moving. Like it's just constant flux. There's no regularity to what everyone is experiencing. So when our neighbor is deployed, we're not, and you know, so on and so forth. So I've always had to be very outright with please ask. And if you ask, I will do it. Or if I can, right? But you have to ask. And I think some people are hesitant to do that, to ask for help, especially when we're all, you know, like dealing with so much and we all have, you know, so much going on in our lives. But I think that is what's amazing is when we can break through that. I would never ordinarily ask for help or ask someone to do this, especially when I know they have 4 kids or their spouse is deployed or whatever. But we've all come to this point where I think we realize we have to. And even if I'm, you know, dealing with something, I can still outreach and help someone else.
I do think, though, there is kind of an unspoken word amongst the military spouses that you will always have a cushion to fall on, and that cushion is another military spouse.
That's right.
There's nothing we really won't do for each other.
Right. But you have to ask.
Yeah,
right?
You do.
And
you do.
Sometimes you don't. But I have found in my experience that I have to ask, and people have to ask me in order for that to happen because life is so busy. Everyone is so busy. It's hard to pick up on.
So what's your favorite part about being a military spouse?
I don't know. Probably the pride.
There is, yes.
Being very proud of what we're doing. At the end of the day, it's so honorable and such a rewarding experience to know what we're contributing to.
That we do really make a difference.
Yeah.
We do. Now, my husband's a retired Marine. I still cry when I hear the Marine Corps hymn. Is that true of you when you hear the Star Spangled Banner or an Air Force?
Yeah, you know, and because we live on base, you know, we hear things throughout the day, right? Reveille or whatever it is. And so we're hearing it all the time.
Yes.
And so maybe not every single time I hear it, but I definitely have moments, and especially when I'm out in the civilian world and I hear it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is part of our life every day. This is what we live. And maybe out in the civilian world, they just encounter it at a ball game or something like that, you know? So yes, it does really, I have those moments when I'm out in the civilian world, especially.
And it is fun to see our children teach their civilian friends some of our traditions. There's nothing like it. It makes us very proud of them.
Yes.
Well, this is great. Do you have anything else you want to tell us about?
I don't know. Let me look here.
Think.
I know. So some of your questions were regarding the community and where my heart lies.
Yes.
And how maybe I can tell you a little bit of how I got to where I am.
Please do.
So yeah, so before I married my husband, I went to school for engineering
Mhm.
and had grand aspirations to be an engineer and to contribute to the world through engineering or within a company that offered technical or whatever, right? Anything in the STEM arena.
Sure.
I didn't have to be an engineer, like I was
Right.
okay with
Got it.
progressing, but that was my aspiration, and I saw the potential and the benefit of being an engineer and contributing to the advancement of the human race and our world, in a bigger sense through that work. And I knew that marrying that would cause lots of problems. And I didn't know what those problems were, but I knew it would be difficult. And it took me a little over a year to decide if I was going to marry him. And it wasn't him, it was this life, because I had worked so hard to create those opportunities for myself, to be able to be the type of engineer that I wanted to be. And so after we joined, I encountered immediate resistance with people who didn't see the value in what I could bring to them because I was different than what they expected, especially as I progressed, right? And I had all of these different experiences that I had developed, these different companies doing these different jobs.
Sure.
And there was a lot of negative perception involved too with, oh, well, you were only there a very short time, or you haven't done this specific type of work or whatever, right? And it was really difficult for me to continue to progress my career. And so 2010, I said, you know what, if we're going to stay in this military life, then I need to change the situation because this isn't right. Because if I'm having problems and I'm being very aggressive about trying to pursue my career aspirations, then other people are also encountering the same problems. And I would never want to see my daughter or my son encounter the challenges that I have if they had career aspirations.
Sure.
And so that's when I left engineering and started writing a book. It's how I started. And then ended up creating a company. And I've been doing that for the past 5 years. And I'm slowly shutting that down and starting another company. But they're all in the career management space. And I've done a lot of work advocating for military spouses. And there's a lot of challenges that transitioning military have as well. And even veterans, too, that are already out in the workforce as far as leveraging their military experience. And so I've done a lot of work in that arena to make it better for people who want to have professions that are fulfilling to them. And in 2011, joining forces was created, and there was a lot of attention brought about to military spouse employment issues. And I'm very happy that all of that has happened because it's kind of happened in the same time that I've been doing my business and doing my work. But I still feel like there's a lot of room left because people in very specialized professions or highly educated professions, people who encounter a lot of challenge when it comes to mobility are still encountering the same amount of challenge.
You're right.
Things have not been alleviated or improved. And so that's really where my heart is continuing to advocate for, professionals or people who have very specific interests, so that they can have those and still be a military spouse. Because one of the other things that I've seen happening is that people who have those aspirations oftentimes become frustrated, and then their service member spouse leaves the military,
right,
because they aren't happy, right, as a unit.
Right.
And so that boils down to a lot of good people leaving the military.
You're exactly right.
So it's a retention issue at the end of the day and a quality of leadership issue for the military. So it's something that I think military community as a whole needs to be interested in. And I know military spouse employment is only one piece of the puzzle, but I think for those who it matters to, it's a very, very big piece.
It's a huge piece. It's a huge piece. There has to be a graceful way of getting all this accomplished. It's just a matter of finding that way.
That's right. That's right. And I think it takes involvement from military spouses. It takes involvement from the military members. It takes involvement from senior leadership. It takes, the people who are creating programs and paying for services that are provided. It takes some of these large federally funded organizations who have the manpower and the reach and the voice. And it takes involvement from the civilian community to listen and to modify what they're doing, by listening to what the needs and the interests are of the people who are trying to make those things work. I mean, all of those parties have to be involved in this solution, right? And I think the relationships are there, but now the magic has to happen. Now those conversations need to happen, and it needs to be taken to another level. So I hope
a big dash of flexibility thrown in there,
right? You bet. So I'm hoping to see that happen in the next year or two.
Well, great.
Optimistic, but we'll see.
It's got to, right?
Yeah. It does for quality and retention issues. And I know that that's a pressing interest for military leaders.
Of course it is.
How do we retain people? We are doing more with less. We have our funding cut. How can we still achieve our mission, with the resources that we have and the rigors that we're enduring, with the wars that are never ending here. How do we do that and retain quality workforce?
Absolutely.
And I think that this is one important piece that needs to be addressed. Definitely.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad we had a chance to chat.
Yeah, I wish I had more to give you. Will you guys be sharing this via audio, or will you be writing it?
We will be sharing it, and
Okay.
I don't want to. I'm almost sure that we're sharing it via video. I'm looking over off the screen at Sam, and he's not paying a bit of attention to me.
Okay.
How are we sharing this, Sam?
We're sharing with Barbara.
With Barbara.
Oh, but via video or via audio?
Via video, audio?
Via video.
Video.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yes,
well,
yes.
I apologize because I'm not on good behavior for video.
Oh, of course you are. Of course you are. Well, you know what? I personally want to thank you for your service to the military. I remember being in your shoes and people would say thank you, and I'd kind of be like, really? I really haven't done much here. But 2 or 3 years later, after we were out of the military, I finally got it that, in fact, the spouses really need to be thanked.
Oh, thank you.
So if you don't get it today, maybe you'll get it when you get out. But thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I actually hear that more often lately. So I think people are becoming more aware of what the family's putting into it, for sure. And, my husband used to get that too. He used to be approached out in public. And this was when he was early on in his career, and he would kind of respond with like, but why are you thanking me? I'm not doing much. I'm in school, like I'm not doing anything.
They're telling me what to do. I just do what I'm told.
And he, I don't know when it was that he finally had that moment of clarity of like, no, I'm representing everything that everybody's doing. And no matter what I'm doing, I am contributing to the overall mission, and I think it took him seeing, people doing jobs that maybe they may dismiss themselves, but he saw the great value in them. Like, for example, like here on base, someone who's not deployed, but they're here on base at the, I don't know what to call it in civilian terms, like where you would go to eat, right? The mess hall or whatever.
Sure.
So, they're serving food at the mess hall. And I think typically someone may be like, well, that's not important. I'm not deploying, I'm just feeding people. And it's like, no, that's very important. That's a very vital piece of the equation that has to balance in order for the mission to be accomplished. And so I think once you recognize that, then
he got it. Well, I said, you are part of the equation as well. So
that's
thank
right.
you.
I agree. And you are too, right? Even as a veteran.
Yes.
Yes, no, I appreciate that.
Okay. Well, thank you. And we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye.